Aloha, my name is Garrett Ford, and this is my lecture on elementary Gyges Ascendance in my Novel Theories in Theoretical Physics lecture series. I hope you enjoy. In this lecture, I'll be covering a variety of different topics in relation to the Gyges Ascendancy. First, we'll be looking at what is called the Tree of Life. And this is not the Tree of Life that you might be familiar with from the Kabbalah. It will be a different sort of Tree of Life that I think some of you might find interesting. So I hope you enjoy that discussion and the new perspectives it'll bring to humanity and its place in the cosmos. Next, we'll be looking at what's called the phantom limb, and this is the problem with consciousness and the eternal I that you might hear so much about, and ego, which we will be discussing in depth with that slide. Next is the Gorgon Mirror, which is going to be an analysis of what perhaps this all means for our interactions with other species, and why perhaps they are so elusive to us. And of course, this is reference to the gorgon in the Old Greek myths. Next is pluvian parasitism, which is some of the ideas here change how we would understand our fundamental laws of how life works. And pluvian parasitism would be explaining what we actually feed upon. And then finally, what you're all here for is the door. How can we take any of this information to find a way out, and what that way out would look like, and how will we achieve a way out? This lecture is the fourth in our lecture series for the top half of our learning pyramid. As you recall, there are two halves to our learning pyramid, and we have been covering the top. And with that top, this being the fourth, is the last of the upper pyramid. It is the unknown, Gyges. We have already covered the known knowns, which is your Yontian cosmology. We have covered the unknown knowns, which was, of course, our delightful Euvatonian epistles. Oops. And then we have our known unknowns, which was the most recent lecture from Mythomite Mnemonitism. we have, with this lecture it being completed, the 4 elementary lectures are all available. And I will begin work on the 4 advanced lectures for the top half of the pyramid. The second half I hope to cover in 2023, inshallah. First, I will be looking at the Tree of Life. And as I said earlier, this is not the Kabbalah Tree of Life. Instead, I think it would be prudent in this model of physics to understand life as a tree, spreading and growing roots throughout reality. And now this tree of life, you've probably seen different artistic representations, but what I think the important thing is, it branches out and goes in all different directions, encompassing every environment on the globe. We find life in the deepest ocean trenches, surviving by the heat of volcanic vents with tube worms. We find life as tiny water bears, as they're sometimes called. It's a tardigrade that can live in vacuums and don't die, but instead go to sleep. And if they weren't so busy eating each other, maybe they would be trying to eat us. And then, of course, there's you, watching this on your phone probably. Hello. And you are watching this and wondering, when will this guy get to the point? Now, the point I will make soon, but first I would like to talk about an old psychological test called House Tree Person. With House Tree Person, a person taking the test is drawing 3 different objects. And these 3 different objects are a house, like so, and a tree, and, oh, sorry, I just gotta finish this tree. Happy little tree. There's a little nest for a little bird to live in, so the tree has a friend. Everybody needs a friend sometimes. I miss my friends. I miss them. There we go. A happy little tree. There's a little hollow, so even the bird can have a friend. It's a squirrel. Yeah, there we go. A little squirrel. Yeah. And then a person. And so this is a very standard psychological little test. Now, what's not important but for this is not the test, but what if all 3 being made of the same lines and connected in the same cosmic medium were actually one? And so the tree is perceived by the squirrel and the bird, and the tree perceives the bird and the squirrel and the human perceives all three. Objects perceiving themselves is constructing reality into a lattice, and that lattice of reality is constructed using pluva. We'll get to what that is a bit later. But imagine, if you will, in the same way that this pen right here that's drawing this spiral constructed all three of these objects and their various eyes and descriptions and little details like the leaves and the tree. Imagine that all of a given area, so on our planet Gaia of the Sol system, perhaps all three, drawn with the same ink, are engaging in what would be described as auto-cannibalism. Because from this perspective, in the 2D plane of this image, that seems ridiculous that they might be connected with the same lines. But if we were to perceive it outside and above from 4D, we would see all of everything, all of the life, spreading out a la so, almost like slime mold. Now, that is not to say we are the same as slime mold. I'm simply saying that it is remarkably similar. The branches and pieces of life all branching out from the ancient Archaean ancestors. And now, if we are all just engaging with eating ourselves, because we're all part in the fourth dimension, looking down, depending on, right, in my previous lectures, this does use some of Yuan-Tian cosmology, so I hope you've seen that, because I'll be only touching on it briefly. So you have your Tet, that momentary time, and then you have T, which is your 4D, and then you have your U, which is 5D, and then your V, which is 6D. And so when viewing life from this timeline, you have it as viewed as first as just a simple line, so here. Then you have it growing as a two-dimensional object, right? You're having your branches spread out. And then here is where it is being able to extend. Now imagine this branch right here is actually reaching off the page or off the screen towards you. That would be the 6D. So it is no longer a flat slime mold. It is now a three-dimensional being able to perceive itself. Now, where we go from here is likely, very likely, to any outsider observing us from outside dimension. So if we use our Q, anything from Q, which is quoi? En français, s'il vous plaît, aujourd'hui. What is perceiving it there will see all of life on Earth as slime mold eating itself, attacking itself, in the same way that a cancer perhaps would be at war with the host body, multiplying, squirming, and filling its space. And so with this, that's why I call it autocannibalism, because from that dimension, you watching this video are part of this elongated chain of life with many billion eyes and billion mouths. And it's we'll be getting into more of what these ramifications are with the phantom limb slide. But each limb of this billion-headed beast, or 6 billion, I believe is billion, on the planet right now, each believes itself to be an individual from the whole, simply by virtue that its sense data, right? You have your cube of light that any one person is perceiving at any moment, and a moment ago is now, let's say, 300,000 meters away, speed of light, and now the next moment's moving in. So each of us is perceiving time and space separately from each other by virtue of time and our minds apparently being separate. However, I would argue that this is not so when you have such concepts as the mass unconsciousness, where I don't have the time to go into it here. However, Carl Jung has brilliant writings on this topic, and I will leave it to the master to explain that, as well as this causes causality to stretch forward and back from this now, from past into future. And so, with this tree of life, anything perceiving us from the outside would perhaps be a bit perturbed by our behavior as a species, in the same way that if we saw a man eating his own fingers and toes and limbs, we would deem him insane. Hence the name Gyges, the mad giants from the Greek mythology. We are the Gyges. In this slide, I'll be talking about the phantom limb. In the previous slide, I discussed the tree of life and how within the Gyges Ascendancy, we are all connected when viewed from the upper planes. Now, this phantom limb piece is different than the phantom limb with the body. Many of you have probably heard of the term, but I'll define it here. A person has a body like so. There's their eyeballs. Hello. Now, let's say they have an accident and they lose a limb. Sometimes, despite the limb being gone, they will still feel pain or feeling like the limb is still moving, despite it being disconnected. Now, I propose that the tree of life functions in much the same way, except the phantom limb, in this case, is phenomenon such as spooky ghosts, as well as the mass unconsciousness, stretching forward and back. And as well as when you go to sleep and you dream. It's a nightcap on top of the head. There you go. Tuck him in. Nice sleep. Now, what this means for us as human beings is that we already have evidence that this may be so through experiences that are considered paranormal. The phantom limb being our connection to what is otherwise severed, which may make some people think that they perhaps want to do a seance to contact, their great aunt about where the gold is hidden. However, in the same way that a set of clothes, you have a hat and you've got a coat, some pants, and some shoes, and a mask, a costume, if you will. The same way that a actor wears a costume or you wear clothes, these are discarded upon death of a limb, where death is merely the advancing of time away from where that limb was absorbing the pluva that it was consuming. And being left behind, however, still connected as we are a network of umbilical cords moving through time. And once the umbilical cord has been severed, we are then a pituitary gland housed inside a sense computer, inside a bone and meat mecca. So, get in your body, Shinji. Anybody's a Evangelion fan will have laughed just now. Oopsie. Evangelion. Anywho, pop culture references aside, the phantom limb in this case is that connection that we cannot explain. And as well as sometimes you will have experiences of synchronicity. I would posit that this is largely attributed to us as a species moving as one and our connection to the mass unconsciousness, which stretches like an ocean, forwards and back amidst the sea that is space-time, which with each of our consciousness, see there's a tiny eye there, it's a top of a cresting wave. It rises for a bit, says, hey, I exist. Well, at the top of that wave, the Kamigawa, the great wave, yes. And then it sinks back, no matter how great the wave, it all rejoins the ocean. and another wave will rise again, different and yet the same, yet each one believes itself to be I. Or perhaps Anna, huh? Never mind. Yes, so there we go. That would be the phantom limb. The idea of the I being a cresting wave inhabiting different bodies throughout time, all connected, though separated at the same time, the paradox of madness being that we are one and many. So, yeah, that is the phantom limb. On this slide, I will discuss the Gorgon Mirror. In the legend of Medusa, a great hero uses a clever trick to get Medusa to view her own horrifying reflection and be turned to stone. And so, I present to you the Gorgon Mirror, which may explain our perhaps lonely place in the universe. Except Medusa is not actually the name of the race. They were called Gorgons, hence the name, the Gorgon Mirror. And she had two sisters, Eurylai and Sitheno. Now, the Gorgon mirrors, there are three in similar fashion to the three sisters. The first Gorgon mirror is the Medusan. This one is that when we are viewed from above by an alien intelligence, they perceive us, like I showed in the previous slide, a mass of auto-cannibalizing and insane limbs of a giant slime mold moving through space-time, consuming pluva and water as some sort of massive supercomputer, hive mind, that has gone mad, like an AI that each component believes itself to be an independent component, each RAM believing itself to be the entire computer, each power source, etc., believing itself to be separate. Ants, in this case, would likely be seen as probably the most highly evolved species on the planet, whereas humans would be seen as insane, debased, hairy beasts. Perhaps. Anyways, in these terms, even ants would be considered insane because they would be also consuming itself, since all life on Earth, with maybe the exception of Venus flytraps and octopi, are likely to have come from this planet. Anyways, I'm getting back, divert from that divergence. So, to a being outside perceiving us from their UFO, they would see just that, this insane species eating itself due to our perception of time and self, that phantom limb, the idea of I, and would likely avoid contact with us at all costs, except for those that are perhaps a doctor trying to treat us, a scientist trying to study us, a zookeeper come to take care of us and make sure we maybe don't make life go extinct, or an exterminator if we get out of hand. Pardon my slappy handwriting. The next Gorgon Mirror is the Urali. Now, this one posits that we've all seen the double slit experiments, and I've referenced them before. When we perceive those particles, waves of light collapse into particles when they interact with matter, and until they are perceived, the light moves as a wave. However, once perceived, that wave collapses. So perhaps extraterrestrial beings existing outside and above, if they are composed of light or pluva or what have you, they would be very opposed to being collapsed into a single possibility point. In the same fashion that, imagine the alien in this case is a very special cat owned by Erwin Schrödinger, and he lives inside a magical UFO. And now this cat exists across all possible dimensions in a superpositional state. However, should it drop down and be perceived like the light particles by us, it would collapse into a single form. And that cat would be no more, though it would have maybe 8 lives left, or 8 billion, who knows. Anyways, the point is, in the same way that us as a human could interact with, let's say, an amoeba by cutting out a slice of us and laying it on a flat plane so the amoeba can come up and say hi, we are unable to express ourselves effectively in such a state, and also that'd be very disagreeable if that would happen to be a slice of you, or frozen in the same way that a human being frozen would be objecting to it. The final mirror, third mirror, is that we are a eldritch horror. We consume reality and light and water, a massive thinking machine bent on propagating itself across time and space. Constantly finding new ways to spread, which we will be going into in another slide in this lecture. However, aliens thus are actually hiding from us in upper dimensions, or perhaps we are quarantined. Because of our ability to collapse waveforms into single perceived realities, which would be detrimental to any being that exists and superpositional states. And thus, we would be perceived as an eldritch horror, just as the Vitruvian forms of the previous lecture would be perceived as absolutely horrific superpositional state beings by us, being not alive and not dead, but a mass of every possible configuration of that person in front of you. This brings us to the pluvian parasite. I've referred to pluva numerous times in this lecture, and I will explain what I mean by that. First, pluva, from the previous lectures, I covered it in depth. However, it is basically unformed acausal matter that is yet to be settled into a single form. So this massive pluva could be turned into a chair, a house, a tree, a person. And what we do when we perceive this matter, this pluva, it collapses into single forms, whether it's a house, a tree, a person, or a chair. What this means is that we are actually, if we are the eldritch parasite, that the Gyges Ascendancy posits that we are. We exist at the ever-expanding edge of a universe consuming energy, light, pluva, in constructing a bigger and bigger body of things that perceive more and more, exponentially perceiving and expanding outwards. Each of us is a limb of a massive, ever-growing, ever-splitting eldritch terror, the Gyges. And each of these splitting off at each choice, each yes and no, each alternate reality, we spread and we fill through alternate dimensions up and down throughout all that can be, would be, will not be. And that is our nature. Every alternative, every variant, spreading outwards from each central point and collapsing again after it's eaten its fill so that it can be consumed by other tendrils. So each of our deaths, all of our possibilities are collapsed, slowly winnowed down and down by the other possibilities that are then consuming us. And what we are consuming at all this time is pluva. We are at the edge of reality, consuming the heat and the light and the energy from the initial burst of the universe, that Big Bang, if you will, or that cosmic medium, or the Goyan, C medium. There we go. Oops, it's messy writing, I'm sorry. I've explained before, I busted my hand and have nerve damage in it, so sometimes it's hard to write. Therefore, what we see is that life likes to spread. Initially, we have that initial two-dimensional amoeba spreading out over all the flat land. It then makes itself into its 2D evolution upwards into 3D and becomes a crab, a fish, etc. And eventually it becomes a person, you, and in this case, me. And now the fish became a lizard, and the lizard became a man. And now the man, it has a new sea to expand into, as we have reached perhaps the limit of this planet, this prison that we are in. And so we, as a species, are trying to find holes, doors, ways to spread life. And so humanity as a whole right now is trying all different means. Some primitive, ancient rocket ships, ships in space, mounted with people inside, flying to a new world. All of it is about generating possibilities until we can break free and find another reality, perhaps, to spread into in our new form, when we would, as the name implies, ascend by embracing that we are Gyges, a giant eldritch horror, blind and mad until we gain our sanity and realize that we are all one. Then we will be able to perhaps make a door. This is what you've all come here for. It's the door. In all the other theories, I talk about being trapped in different layers, whether it is a crystal lattice, or a time prism qubit, or in that thin violin string vibrating Euvatonian violin of creation, that cithern of reality vibrating between void and pluva. We're trapped. And so, with the Gyges Ascendancy, our goal as a species is to find the door by any means necessary. Whether it is using the other theories I have discussed so far in our pyramid of learning, or the future ones I will discuss when I talk about the other half on the full hedron of learning, that double pyramid that is informing our understanding of reality, and that it cannot all be perceived at once. However, from different angles, by uniting many minds as one, you could perceive all sides of the pyramid in the same way that a beast with many eyes, or that hammerhead shark, can see 360 degrees. Now, what kind of technologies, do you ask, would be most preferable? I've talked a lot about in other lectures about time travel and dimensional doors, as well as perception being fluid and crystalline in the quantum lattice. With Gyges, I suggest we stretch. Imagine, if you will, the fabric of reality like this. Now you have normal time. This is normal. And that is just everybody's at the same moment, right? Now, what would you suppose would happen is if we took perhaps a massive amount of energy and power and concentrated it at the very fabric of reality, firing it at, let's say, a Higgs boson or something. Now, so much power that you're not trying to destroy it, though. You're trying to push it and push reality out and away. So let's say a person standing here is in 1 second. Now, if you are firing into this reality and you're pulling it like this, so away, let's say at this place, reality is at 1 year or 10 years. We'll just say 10 years. And at ground zero, it's 1 year has passed. And then here, it's going up by a factor of 10. So 100, 1,000, 10,000, 100,000, up and up and up until we get to the end of time. So, you know, however many and sorry, it's 4, that's a funny pun. Yeah. 4 is death in the Hanyu pinyin. It's a pun in Chinese, Hanyu pinyin. Anyways, it sounds the same. Anyways, so what's happening here is you're firing to the, and you get, let's say if you push it far enough, you push this particle far enough, you create a hole at the end of time. And so now you've got this vortex into maybe the next universe. And that next universe we can spread into. And move into, filling all the different possibilities of all these different myriad worlds. And perhaps even beyond. Maybe if you created a stable tunnel such as this, where you've stretched the fabric of reality so that I'm not sure if this is making sense. It's so hard to describe what I'm trying to do here. You have a flat plane of reality, and if you put enough effort into it, you stretch that into a, it's like this is space-time. You make space-time go at a right angle, right? So your time was here, right? You're standing there, 1 second. Now if you push this reality hard enough, then reality is now at a right angle. You can approach it, and that is how you create a portal. you would have whatever would be on the other side. Perhaps you need to coil it around. I'm not sure. It might actually end the universe doing this. But, I mean, it's either that or we go extinct. So, I mean, if either way we face annihilation, wouldn't it be better to try? And I say, yes, it is better. So, how can we achieve this? Well, we already have some ideas. I have some ideas. Perhaps using the Hadron Collider, making an even larger one on a planetary scale, having it in orbit around a world, and then using that to slingshot yourself a time portal. Not even a time portal, a reality portal, a universal portal. You could travel to any world. You could travel to anywhere, anything, any place, any when. It would be beautiful because you would have the infinite possibilities and truly infinite possibilities that could only be expressed in our dreams. And so that is why the Gyges Ascendancy has come last. It's unknown unknowns. I have no idea how to achieve this. I have a few ideas. However, whether or not any of it works, or whether or not any of it is true, or whether or not it's completely madness, I don't know. And that is the unknown unknown. I don't know that I don't know with this. I don't know anything with this. I do hope it could work, perhaps, and bridge a way so that we can spread to other worlds and life can endure. Now, the last piece of this piece is another how, because of the unknowns. With this, it's very speculative. So Hadron. I also think that through manipulating the human genome, particularly the pituitary gland, that is a time sensor causing puberty and what have you, then you perhaps through that enlargement, engorgement, or manipulation, maybe making people that don't have one and then people that do, and of course we'll, engineering, I know the ethics of this maybe are a bit dubious, but we're facing extinction, people. We already know that we're not perhaps doing the best as a species. So I feel like any sacrifice must be made if we are to ascend. Because in ascension, the same way that a caterpillar becomes a butterfly, they have to shed their old meaty self that crawls blindly, munching, to be able to drink the nectar of the gods. Thank you for joining me on my lecture today. I covered a variety of topics. First, we looked at the tree of life and how we can view life in our time-space as different when viewed from the fourth and up dimension. I also covered the concept of the phantom limb, which I'll expand upon in the advanced lecture, and how each of these various eyes on the end of each limb of it is detached from the whole, but still connected through the I and the mass unconsciousness. And I also covered the gorgon mirrors, which is perhaps why our encounters with extra-dimensional beings are so sparingly small. And then I talked a bit about the pluvian parasite that we perhaps are, and how that connects to the door. And our role in getting to the door is to ascend, as the name of this lecture implies, the Gyges Ascendance. So, I hope you've enjoyed the lecture today. Please comment below, because I enjoy your feedback. And as always, be seeing you. Now, I'm just going to be talking about myself for a bit, so feel free to shut it off, because I'll probably go on for like 15 minutes or something. Hi there, my name's Garrett Ford, and I'm going to tell you a bit about myself. Today, I'll be talking about Vidya. I'll be talking about a favorite new game, an old game, and a favorite a cult game, yeah, kind of a hidden gem. And then I'm going to be talking a bit about books. I'll be talking about fantasy, sci-fi, and actually a prose today. And then I'll also be talking about some of my favorite little, I guess you'd call it guilty pleasures with anime again. So we'll have anime, a manga, and then another guilty pleasure. Oh, I know. Maybe just like a little hobby I'm doing. Yeah. So, with each of these, I have so with video games, a new one. I got Elden Ring for my birthday, and it was very fun. Very fun. My brother pre-ordered it for me, and it was a really great game. I platinumed it, and I'm still playing it though. It's such a relaxing game. You know, the scenery is beautiful, and the world is really well made. And you know, I really, one day I dream of buying my stuff, maybe having a game made of it. That'd be really cool to see. And I really enjoyed it. Very, very interesting, very well done, very fun too. Like just the gameplay, and I think it is maybe my favorite Souls game. I've played all of them except for the Bloodborne. I don't have a new PlayStation, so I haven't played that yet. Maybe one day when they put it on Steam or something. Next is an old one. Final Fantasy VI. I just replayed the Pixel remaster. I know it's an old new game, but my goodness, it's such an amazing game. The music is incredible. The story is top-notch. The characters, there's this ensemble of interesting characters, and like you have Terra, the half Esper, and you have Celis, this imperial like superwoman, and just such an interesting gameplay. Both of them. One half you play as, you start with the Terra, and then the second half you start as Celis, and it's like the mirroring of heaven and earth, or earth and heaven. I guess that's, it's deliberate symbolism, but just a brilliant game, wonderful. I think it is the best Final Fantasy. It is my favorite. I like 7. 7 is very good, and I know that's probably, most people's favorite, but I played 6 first, and I played 1, the very first, was the first one I ever played was 1. And I played Final Fantasies actually, like it's a big influence in my writing. And anybody who's uh, read any of my stuff will know that there's lots of magic and technology mixed together. And actually, I was exposed to that because I was playing Final Fantasy before I ever read The Hobbit or Lord of the Rings. So it does have a big influence on that. So I really feel like it's a great game. And if you haven't played it already, do yourself a favor. It's not very long either, so especially by today's standards, it's very, very short, very fun. Next is a cult video game I really enjoy is actually Silent Hill 2. I guess it's probably, more people know about it now, I'm sure. But it's one of my favorite horror games. I don't play a lot of horror games. I don't like a lot of the gore and the jump scares. But Silent Hill 2 doesn't have a lot of that. It had some spooky, spooky nurses and this pyramid head guy. But it's a very, very well done horror game, and just great music, great everything. So if you haven't played it, do yourself a favor, play it. Now, books, fantasy. I just read. Read Umaru, or not Umaru. I was thinking of Final Fantasy. Imaro. I can't put that. There it is. Imaru. And it was. It's basically like sword and sorcery in this alternate like Hyborian age Africa. And or I guess Zulu age, and the main character, he's like this super warrior. It's like this, it's different. It's good. It's different enough from Conan with its themes, but it's still close enough that if you like Conan, pick it up. It was really good. It was free on the Audible, and so I picked it up, and I really enjoyed it. I love listening to stories, and this one was a delight. I really had fun with it. And I think that if you like sword and sorcery and monsters and muscle men rescuing beautiful maidens and evil wizards, then you'll like this. Next is let me see. Oh, I would say a really good sci-fi would be 2001: Space Odyssey. And that's the Arthur C. Clarke one. So I also really like that. It's a really good one. I didn't reread it recently, but I just feel like I wanted to mention it because it's a very good story, and it deals with the themes we talked about today. Ascendancy, and at the end of the movie and the book, he's transcends into this new form, and he has to uplift humanity so that they don't go extinct. So that's the whole thing with the Gyges, right? Anyways, Gyges Ascendance. And then prose, Gravity's Rainbow. I am rereading it. It is so good. I really enjoy it. It is a difficult read. I'm reading it again just because I feel like I didn't get it quite well the first time I did it. But yeah, Gravity's Rainbow is incredibly good and incredibly fun. Like it's like eating a bowl of jelly beans that every flavor is different, or every bean is a different flavor, and you don't know what you're going to get next. And so sometimes it leaves a foul taste in your mouth, and I was very uncomfortable with some of it. And other times you're eating it, and it's delightful. And like some of it, like just his prose is very fun. Like I think it translates better in audio format because the person who read it does a really good job with capturing some of the fun phrases. So I think that's a really good one. So next is my guilty pleasures. I love my anime. It's not a guilty pleasure. I scratch that. It's a lovely pleasure. I love anime. It's great. Anime. Oh, okay, there it is. Anyways, so anime. One of my favorites is the Haruhi series. The Melancholy of Haruhi Suzumiya. The Disappearance of Yuki-chan is okay. And The Disappearance, the movie one, it's good too, I guess. But yeah, the Haruhi series is really fun. I watch it every summer, actually. So I'm looking forward to my rewatch, because the Endless Eight are actually probably my favorite 8 episodes in anime. And I know you're probably thinking this guy's a masochist, but like when I look at them as just like this like like an artistic piece of, you know, the Endless, like it's just very fun. Like not of all time, but it's just a very favorite. Like if you're gonna take, you know, 8 interesting episodes to show somebody and be like, somebody made this and they, you know, somehow got away with it. I think it's very brave work, but it was also just, it's very imaginative, and a lot of the stuff that I talk about in my movies, my books, and my videos, lectures, theories, there's a lot of crossover, so of course I'm a fan of it. So yeah. I just finished doing Battle Angel Alita. What a cool series. Wow. I really had fun reading it. I don't know how much I can express how much fun it is to read. Like it's got everything. It's got some romance, it's got some action, got lots of action actually. And it's got such a good cyberpunk setting. I also liked Ghost in the Shell, but this one I almost feel like it has almost a like it's got this grim, gritty cyberpunk post-apocalyptic future vibe to it, where, you know, Ghost in the Shell, the world is still mostly intact, with some exceptions. And then hobby, I like to collect Figmas. I don't have very many because they're expensive, and I've talked about that I don't make a ton of money, but I do have some really cool Figmas. I like to collect first editions of my favorite characters. I ordered them over from Japan, and I've got a new one on the way. So I'm super excited about that, and I'm really happy that I got into them. I mean, I know it's not like a real hobby, but, you know, it is fun for me. So, anywho, that's a bit about me. So, I hope you all enjoyed this video as much as I enjoyed making it, and I hope you maybe consider buying some of my books so that I can, you know, just move away from everybody and work on these videos and books full time. That'd be ideal. I could live in a nice village by the sea, and I could, you know, go bowling on the beach or whatever. Yeah. Anyways, thank you for tuning in, and I hope you enjoyed this video.